Hey friends, welcome back to Cross Street Online. I am so glad that you're here, and as you've noticed, we're doing Cross Street Online in a new place, but I'm so excited. We're going to learn from the same Bible, so we're going to have tons of fun doing it, no matter where we're learning from. As we begin our lesson today, I want you to remember our 4 values. We haven't done them on Cross Street Online in a while, but I want to teach you some motions to go with them. So I'll show you, and then I want you to practice this week so that you can remember them on your own. Here we go. Number 1 is love God. Number 2, love others. Number 3, do your best. And number 4, have fun. We can do them again. Here we go. Love God, love others, do your best, and have fun. Like I said, I want you to practice those this week on your own. And next week, I want to see if you can do them all by yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Tristan, and I'm going to show you one thing that I like to do, fingerboarding. When I create a park for my fingerboards, I put in obstacles. It's like in life, obstacles are there to make things tough. And fingerboarding, it makes it fun and interesting because there's always a way to use them and get around them. It's part of it. Now let's check out our story, which is in the book of Joshua chapters 3 and 4, where the Israelites have to deal with their own big obstacle.
Hey guys, I'm Kristen.
I'm Bella.
I'm Levi.
And we're here to do Bible Story Challenge! That's where we take a mystery material and use it to tell our Bible story. So, are you guys ready to see what we get today?
Yeah!
Okay, let's spin the wheel.
Wind-up toys.
Okay.
Let's go get our material.
Yeah, we're gonna get our supplies ready and we'll be back. Okay guys, we're back. We've got our wind-up toys and we are ready to tell our Bible story. So our Bible story today is crossing the Jordan from Joshua 3 and 4. Now in this story, the Israelites, which we're representing with all these cool weird wind-up toys, they had been wandering in the desert for a very long time. Who knows how long they were wandering?
40 years.
That's right, 40 years in the desert. And now was the moment they were able to come into the promised land. So this was a big deal. They came right up to where the Jordan River was and they camped for 3 days. They were looking at this massive, rushing, flowing river. Yes. You guys, have you been near a river that's flooded?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dangerous or not dangerous?
Dangerous.
Dangerous usually, right? So it looks kind of flat here, but imagine rushing, crazy river, the kind you wouldn't want to swim in. Exactly. And Joshua said, wait and see what God is going to do. And then God told Joshua to have the priests carrying something called the Ark of the Covenant come up towards the river. Now, Levi, you want to make some room there? Now, the Ark of the Covenant, yeah, make some room. There we go. Info alert, the Ark of the Covenant was a box that God had instructed his people to make that was to symbolize his presence. And the priests would carry it on poles. Now this is not very beautiful, but the Ark of the Covenant was actually very beautiful and elaborate. And priests would have carried it, not wind-up cars.
Well,
okay.
It's a little beautiful. It's glittery.
Yeah, there you go. There's a little. Okay. So we're going to have them right up next to the edge of the Jordan River. Then God said, have them enter the Jordan River. There we go. And when they started to enter, whoosh, the water downstream flowed away. The water up on this side stopped like a giant wall of water. And the priests with the Ark of the Covenant stayed in the middle. Because the priests were here with the Ark of the Covenant, all the people could cross. So we're gonna actually have all of the people cross. Levi, even those ones, just have them cross over. Well, everybody made it all the way across to the other side. Now, once they were on the other side and the priests were still in the middle, God said have 12 people, one from each tribe of Israel, go ahead and pick a stone from the middle of the river, grab it, and put it over to the side. So, one from each tribe of Israel. And once all the 12 had taken the 12 stones, Joshua instructed the priests to exit the river. And as soon as they exited, whoosh, the river came back. Just exactly as it had been before. All right, now we'll leave the river alone. And Joshua told them, he said, look at these 12 stones that came from the middle of the river. These are stones to remind everyone of God's amazing power, how he is mighty and how he overcomes obstacles, and we can worship him for what he has done today. And so those stones were very important to the people then to be able to look back and remember that. And that is our story of crossing the Jordan from Joshua 3 and 4, told through the use of wind-up toys. We've had a lot of fun, and we just want to say,
Thanks for watching!
Let's back up for a minute. When this story takes place, the Israelites were in the wilderness on their way into a land that God had promised them. And I bet you can guess what the land was called. What do you think? It was called the Promised Land. It makes tons of sense, and you're so smart, I bet you actually did guess it. God had told the Israelites to follow him and trust that he would give them the land. Once the Israelites reached the edge of the Promised Land, God told Moses to send out spies to see what was going on in the land. The spies came back, and they said the land was wonderful, just like God had told them it would be. But they also said there were people living in the land, and the people were giants. They were afraid of the people living there. They didn't really trust that God would help them. And unfortunately, because they didn't trust God, God told the Israelites they'd have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. That's so long. In today's story, though, the Israelites have finally finished those 40 years, and they're ready to go into the Promised Land. Their leader, Moses, had died, and God had appointed a new leader for them, and his name is Joshua. Joshua would lead them into the Promised Land. But the Israelites faced a big obstacle, and the obstacle's name was the Jordan River. God planned to give the Israelites the Promised Land, and nothing was going to get in God's way. We learn a lot about why God continues to save his people in this story. Joshua had given the Israelites some very specific instructions. He told the people that the priests would go first. They would step into the Jordan River, and as soon as their feet stepped into the water, it would stop flowing, it would pile up on one side of the river, and they would cross through the river on dry ground. Where the water had just been flowing, it would be dry. So what even is the Ark of the Covenant, and is it even important? Yes and yes. The Ark of the Covenant was how God demonstrated his presence with his people in the Old Testament. Anytime the people saw the Ark of the Covenant, it was a reminder to them that God was with them. So following the Ark of the Covenant was like following God. Back to the Jordan River, though, the Bible tells us that the Jordan River was at flood stage, which means there was a lot of water. It was like overflowing from the sides of the river. This made God's miracle even more exciting and miraculous because there was so much water. Now, I know what you're maybe thinking. This is sounding a little familiar, like when the Israelites left Egypt, God parted the Red Sea. Cassidy, are you sure you're not talking about the Red Sea instead of the Jordan River? Well, that's a really good observation. God did this same miracle when he parted the Red Sea as he did when he parted the Jordan River. But both times, God was trying to remind the Israelites that he was still powerful and he was still with them, that he would protect them and he would take care of them just like he had before. God is pretty amazing, if you ask me. It was so kind of him to give the Israelites this reminder that he's with them and he's taking care of them always. After the Israelites pass through the river, God told them to take 12 stones and put them in the middle of the river. He wanted the Israelites to remember forever what he had done for them. He stopped the Jordan River and they passed through on dry ground. These stones would remind them that God was with them and that he had the power to overcome any obstacles. And that brings us to today's big idea, which is this: God can overcome any obstacle.
Do you guys know fingerboarding? Not a lot of people know about it, but I love it. Mr. Samuel's here to learn, and Kara's here to help me.
Hey Tristan, this looks really cool, man. Tell me how it works.
Well, I use my fingers on the top of the deck, and it takes a lot of practice to learn. But I can turn, I can flip, and I also love making the obstacles, like this. This is just a handlebar. I love to make obstacles to jump over, and I also like to use wood and concrete and metal and cardboard, and it all comes together to make a really good skate park.
Cool. All right, do your thing.
Kara, can you film me?
Nah,
Come on.
fine.
Hey Tristan, that was really cool. I loved watching you navigate through all those obstacles and do all those tricks.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of like life. Sometimes we face some really tough things and it feels like obstacles are always getting in our way and it seems like we just possibly can't get through them. But you know, God is so powerful. God is so good. God can overcome any obstacle. It doesn't mean he always takes it away, but he will always find a way through the course. God will always provide a way for us through the obstacles that we face in life. In my own experience, one of my biggest obstacles was speaking in public. I was so fearful of that. But then I realized God gave me a voice for a reason, and I have something to say. And my experience does matter, and I found out people wanted to hear what I had to say. So I had to overcome it, and God allowed me and helped me get through that. That was my big obstacle.
That's cool. I don't really like speaking in public either. But do you want to try fingerboarding?
Yeah, but first I want to ask this. How about you? What's your big obstacle right now?
God is so powerful. Even the Jordan River was no obstacle for God. Did you know that the same power that God used to stop the Jordan River is with us today? The Bible tells us that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That means that the same God who stopped the Jordan River can help us to overcome our obstacles too. When we face obstacles in our lives, we can remember that God is with us and he loves us. He wants to help us, and he has the power to overcome any obstacles. Now, this doesn't mean that God's going to remove every obstacle that we face, but it does mean that he wants us to remember that he has a good plan for our lives, and he will help us to overcome the obstacles in our lives. So, when you face difficult situations, I want you to remember that God is powerful and he's with us. He will help us to have courage and strength to face and overcome any obstacles. The Bible tells us that when we face difficult times, God works all things for our good. This means that we can take even the hard things in our lives and God will work them out for our good. God promises this to us and we can trust it. Today's memory verse is from Romans 8:28. I want to teach you some motions for the verse and then I want you to do it with me a couple of times. Here we go. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. You ready? We're going to do it 2 times together. Here we go. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Let's do it one more time. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. That's Romans 8:28. Great work. We've talked a lot today about what it means to trust God, but you might be wondering, why can we trust God? We can trust God for a lot of reasons. He's shown himself to be trustworthy time and time again, just like he did for the Israelites, and he showed us his love in sending Jesus. But here's what you also need to know. There is a really big gap that we're born with between us and God, and there's nothing we can do to get across that gap on our own. We might try a lot of things like going to church every Sunday or behaving really well, but nothing that we do on our own can get us across that gap. But there is someone who God sent to bridge that gap for us who can cross the gap, and his name is Jesus. Jesus came to earth, and he was born as a baby, and he lived a perfect, sinless life. Sin is anything that we think, say, or do that is disobedient to God, and the Bible tells us that sin requires the punishment of death. And so Jesus died on the cross on our behalf. He took the punishment for your sin and for mine. And 3 days later, he rose from the dead. He defeated sin and he defeated death. And by placing our trust in Jesus, choosing to trust him and choosing to accept his work on the cross as the bridge between us and God, we have the hope of getting to spend forever with God. And God promises to help us to live our life in the way that he designed it and the best good plan that he has for our lives. It's the best decision you could ever make, to trust Jesus to be your forever friend. And it's really pretty simple to trust Jesus. You just have to admit that you're a sinner, and it's okay to admit that because we are all sinners. And then you believe that Jesus did come to earth, die on the cross, and raise from the dead 3 days later. And then you just confess that you want to trust Jesus forever, and you allow him to shape you to look more and more like him every day. You just do your best to follow him and obey him every day, and it's really simple. You don't even have to say special words. You can just pray where you're at right now and ask God to be your forever friend, and it can sound just like this. You can pray along with me if you want. Dear Jesus, I believe that you are God's son, and I believe that you came to earth, lived a sinless life, died on the cross, and rose from the dead 3 days later. I also believe that I'm a sinner, and on my own, I cannot bridge the gap between me and you because of my sin. But I believe that Jesus made that gap for me, and I am so thankful for it. Jesus, would you be my forever friend? Help me to trust you and to obey you more and more every day for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for this gift. It's in your name I pray, Jesus. Amen. Friends, if you decided to make Jesus your forever friend, that's seriously the best decision you could ever make. Find an adult around you, tell them about this exciting decision so they can help you to choose your next steps. I want to thank you for joining us for Cross Street Online today. This week, I want you to remember that God can overcome any obstacle. And we'll see you next week.
Welcome to the bright side.